Well, the author and the film producer and documentarian, Melanie Davis.
Bringing a special hero up. What you just saw is a clip. Actually, it's a trailer for a film that I'm striving to produce. And I'm not going to talk a lot about that right now, but I hope that you'll go visit loveyourveterans.org to learn more and to listen to the song. You're probably going to hear it today because the songwriter and singer Matt Snook is here. So this is a great event. I'm going to introduce you in just a second. I want to start out by saying we are greatly blessed to be Americans. We live in a country with freedom and liberty unlike ever seen before. And it all began when fathers and sons in the farms and backwoods of this land grabbed their muskets and their axes and their knives and whatever weapons they could find, and they took on the largest, most well-equipped military in the world at the time. They had no uniforms, were threadbare, no boots, and often no shoes. They were destitute because there was no formally organized government regularly sending supplies and equipment. They were defeated more than they won. Their desertions were high, and the odds of winning were almost entirely against them. Yet despite all the reasons to give up, they went on to win for us liberty and independence. Wouldn't you love to meet one of those brave souls and give them a hug and say, thank you. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for creating so much freedom at such a cost. Well, you know what? There are people around us who are equally as deserving of that gratitude. And there's many in the room today, and I want to take just a moment and introduce just a few of them to you so that you have an idea of the great people that are sitting right here in our presence. And I'm going to ask them to stand. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I want people to know who you are. I'm going to start out by talking about Omar Avila. He was brought up on stage. He is a veteran of the Iraq War. Sorry, I don't remember all your ranks, but I know he's high-ranking. Omar was wounded severely when he was hit with an IED. When he jumped out of the vehicle that he was in, he broke both legs, compound fractures, if you know what that means. And yet he walked over to be rescued. He was badly burnt. And burns are, I think, probably the most painful injury that you can sustain. You can imagine what he had to go through. And it was tough. But Omar is now the spokesperson for an organization called Troops First. And they have something called Operation Proper Exit. And he takes veterans who are injured like him, who were not able to walk off the battlefield but had to be carried off on stretchers. And he brings them back and allows them to stand and say, I am not defeated, and walk off and walk out of that country. I hope you can see him. There's kind of a pillar in front of you. Omar, you might need to step out. He's also a mentor. He goes and he travels all over the country regularly, and he works with severely wounded and helps them to find hope. Chuck Foreman. Where are you? The back corner. Chuck Foreman was in special, you're still clapping things, in special operations. He served during the Cold War. He was in Germany when the wall came down. And then he was one of the first in special operations to go into the Middle East, where he witnessed a lot. And he saw what was it called, Death's Highway, witnessed tank battles, and was very pivotal in that. Now today, Chuck Foreman uses his military training, and he rescues missing children. As far as I know, I think he's up over 40 now that he has rescued. He founded an organization called Center for Search and Investigation for Missing Children, CFSI, and he is organizing volunteers, private investigators, and other people all over the world. He's got them in all countries, and he's training people how to save children using the techniques that he knows, and he travels all over on his Harley to do that. AJ Shubai. Where are you? Well, he's also in the back corner. I got to meet AJ on Facebook. It's a great place to meet people. AJ also served in Iraq, and he was leading a very heavy firefight, keeping his boys going, and didn't even notice that he'd been shot and had lost the use of his arm, but he kept on going as long as he could, and suffered severe wounds with that. And now AJ is a spokesperson for Love Your Veterans, which is a national campaign to raise awareness, appreciation, and support for our real heroes. So, and he has some incredible stories that he stands and shares and is really helping us to raise funds and awareness. I'm so glad you're here today, AJ. Another veteran I wanted to recognize if he's here, and I don't know, Andrew O'Brien, are you here? I don't know if he made it. Andrew O'Brien is a veteran who was suffering severely with PTSD, as so many of our heroes do, and he actually attempted to commit suicide, ended up in a hospital, lived through it, and now he is taking what he experienced and has put together a program, and he's written a workbook to help families to help their loved ones when they return from deployment, and he's going on a tour to save lives. Now, Memorial Day is a day that we remember those who died to provide freedom and to protect our country. And we talk a lot about those that die on the battlefield, and we talk about D-Day. But you know what? There's a lot of heroes that need to be remembered that are still dying. They're dying at a rate of 22 per day right here at home, because when they return from war, they have not left the battle, and it's a severe one. And I got to tell you, I had no idea that they dealt with this, and I imagine most of us don't. Maybe 22 a day is a new number for you to hear, and that's they're dying of suicide, veteran suicide. And I didn't know about this until I, as a personal historian, one who loves to preserve stories that are inspiring, I began writing the Triumph Book Heroes. It's a collection of stories from veterans from World War II up through our recent conflicts, all different wars, different ranks, first-person accounts, because that's the best way for history to be recorded. I originally started writing this book because I wanted to increase patriotism. Who loves our country more than those who are willing to die for it? And I think our country could use a lot more patriotism. But in the course of interviewing the veterans, I found out that I had not known, that I was ignorant of just how much they suffer. And so in the course of creating this book, that's when I founded the national campaign, Love Your Veterans, and have been able to go on and interview and get to know so many more veterans. I'm working on more books. So as we take this Memorial Day to remember those who have died for us, let's take a moment and strive to recognize that we, each one of us, can make a huge difference in the lives of those who don't need to be remembered on Memorial Day, that don't need to die of suicide. Because I'm going to tell you right now, they are not dying of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. They're dying of neglect, because they are not receiving the support, the care, and the treatment that can save their lives. And that's an important message, and I need all of your help to get that message out. Well, sitting here in front of me is a real hero, a true legend, and we are so blessed and fortunate to have him in our presence. This is Lieutenant Colonel Julian A. Roadman, and I had the opportunity to meet him when I was down here in Austin over at Heroes Night Out in Cedar Park. And he came by, he heard that I was going to be in town, and we'll have to figure out how that happened. I'm not sure how you heard about me, but he brought me his manuscript for his book, and today is the first day that it's available. So this is the release of his book. It's called A Combat Nightmare in World War II. Lieutenant Colonel Roadman is the pilot of a B-17 bomber. and I want us to have a chance to hear a little bit from him. So I have some questions that I'm going to ask that just kind of give him the chance to tell us his story, because it's quite amazing, actually. So I don't know if, could you bring me a stool so I can get down at his height? Thanks. I think this will be okay. All right. Lieutenant Colonel Roadman, how many missions did you pilot over Germany?
35, and they were all on the nation of Germany, none of the other countries, just Germany.
And you bombed some very high-profile places in Germany too, didn't you?
Well, there were 9 men on my crew, and not one man got injured, and not one man got killed, and that was very unusual for my air base. We were the youngest heavy bomber crew flying out of England. Average age was 20 years old, even. I was 21, and they didn't call me lieutenant or sir. I was 21. They called me, "Hey, old man." And that was the kind of men I had on my crew. And kids make good soldiers, good soldiers.
So the title of your book is A Combat Nightmare in World War II, and that's actually very significant. I wonder if you'd share with us that nightmare and how that title came to be.
Well, I flew one mission to Cologne, and on the way back, we had to slow up to 110 miles an hour because the airplane had an oil tank that was going empty, and we weren't sure that we could make it back to England, but we did. And after that, every night, night after night after night, I had a nightmare. And the nightmare said that I would be shot down on the 7th mission. I'd only just finished one mission then. And the nightmare was very detailed. It told me what spot and formation I would be flying, and that I would have a backpack parachute on, which I never used usually. We had harnesses, and then we could clip a silk pack right on our chest for bailing out. But after 3 weeks of dreaming this night after night, I got me a backpack parachute. And the dream told me that I would I would be blown from my airplane, and I would be able to get out using the backpack parachute. It also told me that I would be taken prisoner by the German Luftwaffe, and so you'll have to buy my book and read it to hear the rest.
I'm going to give them one more little teaser, though. Okay? I'm going to give them one more little teaser. And that is that this nightmare came true, but not in the way you might think. It's incredible, actually. It's a very supernatural, amazing story. I know our time is short, but I do have one more important question for you. And what do you consider to be the most important mission that you flew?
The most important mission was during the Battle of the Bulge. All of the bridges across the Rhine River had been knocked down. And there was one bridge they had attempted to knock down, and the 8th Air Force made several missions to knock it down, but they did not. And there were 12 ships on my formation, and we managed to knock that into the river. This was a bridge. If you're familiar with the Cologne Cathedral, the bridge ended right at the doorstep of the cathedral. And we were ordered never to damage the Cologne Cathedral. Now, that was a cathedral built, I think, about the 16th century, 15th century, somewhere in there. And that bridge was a steel bridge for rails and for highways. And we were ordered never to damage the cathedral. And to my knowledge, we did not. But we sure blew that bridge in the river. Now, the next day was historically considered the end of the Battle of the Bulge. But I have not read anywhere that we were credited with knocking that bridge down. That was the important one.
That is important. So you are actually meeting one of the heroes who helped end the war by taking out that bridge. You really did.